January is an interesting month, isn't it? I mean, we're at 70 degrees on Wednesday. We were 30 yesterday, and I guess we're going to 40 today. And it always intrigues me. January has this really interesting energy about it because we finished up the holidays with all the kind of flash and dazzle, and we get to January 1, and it almost feels to me like January is where we hit the reset button. Do you notice how in your life, and it's true in my life, that there's things that never get done? For example, when do you ever finish taking care of your health? When does that happen? I really wish I knew because I'd like to check it off my checkbox and say, done, I've got my health in order, check. When is it that you finish, discovering with your mind, reading a book, going to a class? Well, you really don't. So what happens in January is we say, okay, you know what? I bought that treadmill and now it's got a lot of clothes on it. I'm going to reset that button and I'm going to start. Or, I started that online class, 6 months ago, and I never finished it. I never finished the book, or whatever it might be. And it's like, beep, we're going to hit that reset button, and we're going to start again. It's like, okay, I'm going to get back on track with this, whatever this might be. And we also do that spiritually. We say, I had every good intention of reading the daily word every day and maybe having a little time of quiet time, but, life just gets in the way of these ongoing things, and they're commitments, and they're strong commitments, but we don't always follow through with them. So January 1 is, boop, hit the reset button, and we're going to start anew. So this January, we've been looking at what it would take to sort of rekindle the fire within us. What is it that we are attempting to achieve on a spiritual level that, like the ongoing journey of our physical level and our mental, emotional levels, that we're trying to reset and get to something where we can once again experience what we're calling the warmth and glow of spirit? Well, last Sunday, we started off by saying that it's important to recognize that there's two levels of spirituality. And it's really, really critical that you hear one is not better than the other, because the minute you go there, then you tend to default to one and not the other. They work together. They work in tandem. They need each other. Because we have a physical body, we are needing to work out our spiritual journey and the everyday living of our life. What's the point saying, I have all these great spiritual thoughts and my life was a mess? Well, then it's not being worked out in your life. So we call the second level, the secondary level, or the psychological spiritual level. Now, this is the level we are most familiar with, and we're most familiar with it because this is where we read the books. This is where we listen to the sermons. This is where we take the classes. This is where we study the Bible. This is where we articulate to friends, I've had this spiritual awakening, and it's, and I've found a church home. And so it's the verbalization and the action. When I have a spiritual awakening, I can't stay the same any longer. I'm not the same. So it's calling me to do something different with my life. And that action, that thought, that emotion, that movement, that healing is what I'm calling the secondary or psychological level of spirituality. The problem is there's another side to that coin. It's what I'm calling the foundational or the primary spirituality. And the primary spirituality is deep. The primary spirituality lives in the dark. The primary spirituality, the foundational primary spirituality is energy, mystery, and silence with a capital S. Not just the lack of talking, but true silence. And because we cannot articulate the primary level, we have a hard time understanding it. We can't put our arms around it because we are struggling. It's beyond language. It's beyond thinking. It's beyond feeling. So what is that? And yet we know that that is there. So we've used the image and the analogy during the month of January of a fire. And that very first Sunday we talked about the cold embers. And we have the assurance of God that the fire never, never goes out. You are never disconnected from God. No matter how far you go away, no matter how much you want to deny it, the fact that you have come out of energy, mystery, and silence means that you will be forever connected to it. But you know, that fire can grow awfully dim and awfully cold. And when we want to start rekindling that fire, we cut down a big tree and throw the log on the fire, do we? We start by putting a little, spreading out, putting some little leaves on it and kind of giving it a little air and helping it along. We tend it. We pay attention to it. We watch it. And so, too, in our spiritual journey, when we hit that reset button, it's like, I'm going to start tending that fire. What does that mean for us? We need to start paying attention to what is going on inside of ourselves, deep, deep, deep within. Unfortunately, I think what often happens is when we talk about what is inside of ourselves, we default to the psychological inside ourselves. And oftentimes that brings up some unhappy memories. Oftentimes that can bring up injuries and places that we need healing. But folks, whatever image, and again, we're struggling with language, we're struggling with images, whatever it takes for you to understand that underneath all of that is a darkness like black velvet. It's warm and it's comforting. It's a darkness like a shiny new black car. It is sleek and inviting and mesmerizing, beyond our thoughts, beyond our human experiences, beyond the energies that we have, is this level that we are calling the foundational level of spirit. And that's where we want to get, and tending that fire to get to that place of the glow. You know, when the fire is the hottest and the friendliest, if you will. And there's something, because, of course, the last couple days were really cold, I really got to thinking about this thing about fire. And you notice when you're really cold, you're really agitated, and you talk really kind of funny, and you're just kind of all bundled up, and you just want to get warm. What is it about the fire that holds an invitation? You know, human beings across all of the centuries of our lives have always been fascinated with fire. The destructive aspect of it, the cooking aspect of it, the warmth aspect of it. We've always been concerned with fire. So fire holds out this invitation, especially a nice warm fire, using that analogy on a cold winter day. We kind of come into that fire, and what happens? We're cold, we're agitated, we're uncomfortable, and then slowly but surely, you start feeling your hands get warm, you take your gloves off, and then you take your hat off, and maybe you get warm enough and take your jacket off, and you go, oh, I feel so much better. I just feel so much better. And you know what happens when we get warm? We get relaxed. Don't we? Have you ever tried to, this is my personal experience, your feet get cold, I cannot go to sleep. Got to have my footies so I can go to sleep. Once my feet get cold, once I get warm, I'm out like a light. I relax. I get comfortable, okay? And what happens when we get relaxed and comfortable? We get open. We get receptive. We get quiet. Because when we're cold, we're jittery. We talk like, oh, I'm so cold, I'm really cold. But when we relax and get warm, we just say, hey, hi, how you doing? You experienced it right out the door when everybody was coming in. Oh, I'm so cold. And by the time you got to the fellowship, it's like, oh, we got coffee, we got donuts, it's great. I feel much better. Now think about that in terms of spirit. This underlying foundational aspect that I'm talking about is like that glow, that warmth that is calling you, it's inviting you. It's not as much about the light as it is about the warmth, the invitation that's being held out to come to spirit. And when coming to spirit, the gift you will receive is that openness, that warmth. And don't we use those kind of images when we talk about, say, someone we love, we hug them, we warm them. A baby, we hug the baby, we warm the baby. And what happens is we relax and we open. And that's the invitation that Spirit is trying to hold out to us. But it's not at the level where we're going to talk about it. Did you ever notice, too, that when you do get warm, that there's not as much to talk about. It's funny because I think we intuitively know when we're cold, talking and movement, the agitation of shivering, makes us warmer, right? Because we're trying to generate some heat. We're moving. We're trying to generate some heat. But once we get warm, it's like, nice to see you. Yeah, how are you? Good, fine. I'm warm, I'm open, I'm receptive, I feel good, I feel loving. And this is the invitation that Spirit holds for us on the foundational level of spirituality. Well, now the question might be, okay, that's a nice image, but how do we get there? You're saying it's beyond language, it's something we can't kind of articulate, the 3 steps, go forward, and then you got the foundational level. How is it that we're going to connect with this level of spirituality that is really beyond our understanding? And I think the first way that we are going to do this is to reinvest ourselves in spiritual curiosity. Spiritual curiosity. Because what has happened over the course of time, we have lost our curiosity about God. How is God working in this? I used to have a spiritual director, and that would be her word to me. And I'd go on and on and on. She'd say, Marianne, how is God working in this? I don't know. That's the problem. How is God working in this day, in your life, in the circumstances, in the events? How is God working in this? To be spiritually curious. Isn't it funny? Curiosity is something we all of us humans share. If Shelley says that she's read a good book, I said, I was going to read that too. I read the preview. She says, oh, you'd really love it. Or somebody says, you think, well, maybe I'd like to go to a movie or something. And the very next day, not only does Google know that you want to go to the movie, but Rennie comes up and he says, oh my gosh, you would really want to go to see this movie. And I was thinking about that. I was just thinking about that. And tell me I'm really curious. Isn't that what we say? We go places because we're curious. You went there for dinner. I read the book. I saw the movie. I'm curious. But you see, we're not curious about God anymore. And you know why we're not curious about God? Because everybody's done it for us. Everybody's done it for us. So, the great major religions of the world that we call the religions of the book, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, got a book. You want to know about God? Read the book. Don't go there yourself. Don't think about it yourself. Read the book. Well, and if that isn't enough, then you connect with Jesus or Moses or Buddha or Muhammad, and they'll tell you. And suddenly, what was your journey now is gone. It's their journey. It's not your curiosity, it's their discovery. Their journey is not your journey. Now, I'm not saying throw all of that away. That's not what I'm implying here. But to understand that the guidebook is the guidebook and not the journey itself. When we go someplace on our trips overseas, we buy a Rick Steves book. Okay, that's Rick Steves' impression of what you can see. And I like looking at Rick Steves, say, oh, I don't want to miss that, I don't want to miss that. But if I do miss it, it's okay, because it was Rick's journey, not mine. So why is the Bible any different? That was somebody else's journey, not mine. And if I am going to truly get curious about God again, I've got to start asking myself some questions that have no answers. And there's like, oh, wait a minute, then why would we ask ourselves the questions? Because we've got to live into the silence. We've got to live into the mystery. We've got to live into the energy that God is a revelation. God is not an investigation. I've got a spreadsheet of what the Bible says about this, that, or the other thing. But God doesn't care about that. God says, what do you think about your journey that has been revealed to you from within? Question number 1. Who are you before you were born? Who are you before you're born? In the present tense, who are you before you were born? There is no answer. There is only your answer. It is only an answer that can be revealed to you as you're spiritually curious. So, well, what do you mean, who am I? You see, here's our challenge. Back to the 2 levels of spirituality. We define spirituality and our life by our human experiences, by our human life. And what I'm saying to you is there's another level, there is another definition to your life. And it must be revealed to you. To me, I understand clearly that who I was before I was born is who I'm going to be after I let go of this body. It is one great spectrum of eternity. The author and great Irish poet John O'Donohue says, it's not important if you're going to heaven or hell or where you're going afterwards if you don't understand where you have come from. Because where you have come from is where you're going to. It's the spectrum of eternity, and for this moment in eternity, you took on a body. You took on a body with all of the body kind of things that happen to a body to learn about spirit, to learn about revelation, to learn about something awakening within you. Oh my gosh. That journey is unique to each of us. And we can read the Rick Steves book of My Spiritual Journey. But you know, it's Rick's idea. It's not mine. So as we struggle with these kind of ideas, you know, we sit in the silent moment. And you know, because all too often I think people say, the obvious solution to having a better spiritual journey is that I sit in silence for longer, or I learn to meditate, so I got to get a book or go to a guru. What I'm saying to you is just get curious again. Get curious about how God is showing up. Get curious about how God is working through you. Get curious about how God is working in the world. Get curious. And sometimes you say, well, I don't really see it. That's okay. You know, sometimes revelation comes instantaneously. I get it. And other times it's years in the making. And you know, to me, this was one of those shocking revelations to me. I kept saying, God, I don't understand. I really don't understand. I want the answer. I want the answer. And one day, I said to myself, self, if you have to keep asking the question, you don't have the answer. Now think about that. Think about a child who wants to know what 2 + 2 is. And they go to you, what's 2 + 2? And you said, one day you'll figure it out. And you say, one day you'll figure it out, one day. And one day they come and they say, 2 + 2, I know what that is. And what happens? They stop asking the question. Okay? So you and I aren't very patient with spirit, quite frankly. Because we live in the psychological level. Our lives are going on a continuum. They're busy, they're active, they're going. To take in the practice of just, you may want to call it meditation, that's fine, but it's about spiritual curiosity. I love that word. That phrase is really sort of resonating with me. How is this world that I see on the psychological secondary level, whether it's my own being or all of you or all of the world, I believe, and I teach, and I believe that unity teaches that underneath it all is the foundational work of energy, of mystery, and of silence. And I don't understand it. I don't know why bad things happen to good people, why there are bad people. I don't know. But that does not mean I'm not going to ask. And that does not mean I'm not going to be curious about an answer. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to sit sometimes and look at things and go, how is this happening? I don't get it, and I don't understand it, and I don't like it. But I am warmed by the glow. I am open to the message. I am listening deeply within myself. And suddenly something happens, is that you begin to know that you know. The interesting thing about that is you don't really know what you know, but you know it. there's that moment when something inside of us goes, yes. And we feel centered, we feel calm, we get it. But if somebody said, could you explain to me what it is that you get? I can't explain it. I just know that I know. And I don't have to search anymore for that direction, that guidance, that wisdom, whatever it might be. And it's not a heart knowing, it's not a head knowing, it's a knowing in the depth of my being. It's the cellular vibration of energy that has moved through the mystery, that has broken the silence of my being with that vibration. And I know that I know that I know. What is that foundational level? To invite ourselves to the question, who are we without a body? What do we believe about eternal life? What is our journey? I mean, it's wonderful to read the Bible, it's wonderful to follow Jesus, but that is their journey. What is yours? We must reinvest ourselves this year in spiritual curiosity. There's lots of things to be spiritually curious about. And to listen deeply in those moments as we ask those questions. Because you see, folks, it isn't silence that we're trying to hear. We are trying to hear by the silence. Thank you, and God bless.